one team, Dalton, one top 10 team that did not even come close to winning this one. Texas A&M, number 25 in the country, beating number 9 Missouri, 41-10 in this game. The only ranked game of the day, and Missouri got absolutely clobbered by Texas A&M. Let's go over the highest graded players from this bloodbath. Texas A&M, their highest graded player is actually Connor Weigman at 86.7, Dalton Brooks at 81.1, Noah Thomas at 80.3, Le'Veon Moss at 77.9, Scooby Williams at 78.1, and Albert Regis at a 73.4. Let's go over to the Missouri side of the football. Their highest graded player is their best player. That's Luther Burden III at an 84.2, Sidney Williams at a 72.3, Zion Young at a 71, Christian Williams at a 70.7, Cameron Johnson at a 70.1, and Brady Cook at a 68.5. Dawn, what was the stat that told the story and just an absolute clobbering by Texas A&M?
There's a lot here. There's a lot going on here with Missouri. I'm going to go with a 61.9 team offensive grade, and that was actually only a 58 in the first half, but that's 61.9. They only had one game lower than that all of last season. We talked about it going into it. They're just not executing.
Yep.
And you know, even
they had a bye week too.
Picking this game was hard because they're coming off a bye week. They weren't executing in their first 4 games, even though they started 4-0. Okay, and improving when you're winning is one of the biggest challenges. It's something I think Nick Saban talks about that all the time. Improving when you're winning is harder than when you're losing. This Missouri team was just not ready to play this game. And coming off a bye week at Kyle Field, when they really needed to prove themselves, really even just prove to themselves that they were still an elite team like they were last year. Luther Burden was their only offensive player that graded at least a 71. 3.6 yards per carry, 6 yards per pass attempt. And this goes for their defense, too. It's not like their defense played well either. There was nothing for Missouri, absolutely nothing that went right. You could see it on the sideline. They looked absolutely dejected by halftime on the sideline, like there was no belief at all, even with their weapons that they could come back. I got to be honest, I don't really understand Marquise Johnson not playing a single offense.
That's wild.
Not playing a single offensive snap when you know he's got game-breaking speed. He's the exact type of guy who can get you back in a game from a big deficit. Penalties when they should have had touchdowns, false starts, missed throws. Brady Cook is just not as accurate this year as he was last year. I don't know where that version of Brady Cook is, but I don't know that we're going to see it again. I'm with the new playoff format, I'm very wary of just calling a team shot when they have one loss. Like, okay, like with so many teams right now with one loss, Georgia, Bama, Clemson, Utah, Ole Miss, so many big-name teams that have one loss that are playoff contenders, right? You don't have to be undefeated in this format. But Missouri right now, even with just one loss, I have a hard time taking them serious as a playoff contender.
Yeah.
Because in none of their 5 games have they executed. Not even the first 2 games against easy teams when they won 89-0. And you watch the tape and you go, they're not really executing. And then they go out there and against Vandy and it's double overtime. And Boston College and they fall behind early and just find some way because they're at home. Missouri's not executing. And now they got it against a ranked team on the road in a tough road environment. And they didn't execute, and this is what you get.
Yeah.
This is what you get when you just don't play good football every week. Somebody walks on the field and smacks you.
Yeah.
So now it's about Missouri just finding the resolve to want to play better. That's really what it comes down to, is they got to want to play better. They got to not be dejected. One loss realistically doesn't kill their season.
No.
You turn around and you figure it out the next couple weeks, and you turn around and beat Alabama, who suddenly is beatable.
Yeah.
And you're in the playoff.
Yeah.
But you got to start playing better football in a hurry, and you've already lost a bye week doing it, preparing for A&M, who I honestly believe that if Missouri plays up to their potential, they're more talented than Texas A&M. They should be. But should be doesn't mean a darn thing.
Yeah.
You have to go out there and execute, and in none of their 5 games have they executed to their potential. They're the one team with one loss I can't take seriously right now.
And Dawn, even if say they lose to Alabama, but they win out other than that, does a 10-2 Missouri get in with that schedule?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Because now Boston College just lost to Virginia.
Yeah.
That doesn't look as good. Beating Vandy looks better, but even at the end of the day, as good as Vandy is, they might win 7 or 8 games.
Yeah.
Cool. This was the problem with Missouri having such an easy schedule. It was an easy theory to be like, okay, they're going to rack a lot of wins.
Yeah.
Because they should, because they're supposed to be more talented than all but one of these teams. But if you don't execute and you don't play good football, it doesn't matter how talented you are. We have a handful of teams every year that are talented and don't play good football, and we go, oh, why'd they only go 6-6 or 7-5? I'm not saying Missouri's going 6-6, 7-5, but they don't look like a playoff team at all.
No, I mean, listen, they can go 10-2 and still miss the playoff, which is I did not think it was possible for an SEC team. I thought every SEC team that wins double-digit games will get into the playoff. But with that schedule, they have an easy schedule, and now you lost to Texas A&M in a blowout fashion. By the way, it's not like you can at the end of the year be like, oh, they barely lost to A&M and they barely lost to Alabama. Like, no, they got blown out of the water by Texas A&M. I think now for Missouri, they pretty much have to run the table now.
If we're just taking what we have on the table, and I knew this was a possibility that this could happen going into this game, was either Missouri's going to figure it out and they're going to be way better, or they're not, and this could happen. Yeah. I had a feeling this one way or the other would not be a close game. Mm-hmm. This was going to go two very divergent forks in the road here, okay? Do we have any reason to believe right now they can go into Tuscaloosa and win? Even with Bama losing yesterday, do we have any reason to believe that?
And the way that Oklahoma defense is playing, too, they could lose to Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they play South Carolina. I mean, they play Arkansas at the end of the year. Yeah, it's just the craziest part about this whole Missouri thing is why is this offense this bad? Why I don't get it. Brady Cook's back. You got Luther Burden and all those receivers are back as well. The offensive line lost a couple of key pieces, but I still think the offensive line is really good. I understand they have a brand new run game as well, but that run game is still pretty good. They brought back, obviously, their head coach and offensive coordinator came back as well, Kirby Moore. They're just, like I said, they're not executing. It's such a maddening thing to think about because it's dude, I don't know why they're not. You could usually, for some teams, like say Michigan, we're going to talk about just a little bit, you're like, I know why their passing game's not good because they lost J.J. McCarthy. They lost all these guys. I don't know why Missouri's offense is not working right now. It honestly makes no sense. So my side that tells the story kind of goes into that. Missouri in the first half, negative .603 EPA per play, 3.4 yards per play in the first half, negative .39 EPA per run, negative .74 EPA per pass. Brady Cook in the first half had a 40% adjusted completion rate in that first half. And Dalton, the craziest, for me, what was so frustrating looking at all these numbers in the first half specifically, you had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and you come out this flat in the first half. That's why I'm more pessimistic about Missouri than I've ever been, because it's you had 2 weeks to prepare for this game to get it right, and that's how you look in the first half. And listen, they played a little bit better in the second half, but it's dude, you got to come out firing immediately. But no, we're actually a top 10 team in the country, and they lost this game in the first half. The game was over at halftime, honestly. Yeah. And when you come out that bad in the first half after having 2 weeks off, I'm not taking you seriously as a playoff contender anymore. As of right now, you can't
do it. And you know, and let's give Texas A&M their credit now. Now they've set themselves up with a relatively easy schedule up until their last game against Texas, and that ought to be fun. They played as well as we've seen them all. This was their best game of the year. It wasn't just Missouri blowing it and whatever. Texas A&M played their best game. Yep. Nick scored and their defensive line was great. Connor Weigman was good. Their wide receivers that was the best game they played all year, and I'm going to give you my most impressive, Le'Veon Moss at tailback, looking like Le'Veon Bell out there. Honestly, 12 carries for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns is a pretty good day, with 2 catches and 35 yards to go with it. 78.8 rushing grade. The blocking was great in front of him, and he took advantage. Everything was firing on all cylinders, and there was a question about how different this offense would look with Connor Weigman back in there instead of Marcel Reed, because they really found the run game with Marcel Reed in there. And part of that was Reed and his feet at the quarterback spot. But, Moss and Amari Daniels was great too. His touchdown run was fantastic too. Texas A&M finding this running game with these 2 backs is starting to work. And obviously you're about to tell us, with Weigman now giving them more from the pocket than Reed did, a little more balance on offense, right? But the part of the balance that needed to stay was that run game still being really good as it was the last 3 weeks, and they did that with Moss and Amari Daniels. Yeah, listen, Connor Weigman, for me, is the most impressive part of this game. There are a lot of debates over who should be A&M's quarterback, even with Weigman healthy. Should he be the quarterback? Marcel Reed's 3-0 in his absence. Should he be the quarterback? There's no questions anymore. This is Connor Weigman's team, and I think we always kind of knew that. 90.4 PFF grade in this one, 88.6 passing grade, 18 for 22 for 276 yards, 12.6 yards per attempt, 90% adjusted completion rate, 90%. And he also ran for 37 yards as well. So many people
dropped him dramatically in the 2025 NFL Draft Big Board after his performance against Notre Dame, who has one of the best defenses in the country. This kind of performance, though, will raise his stock back up, I think, Dalton. And honestly, I got to look. This is probably a career high for him in terms of PFF grade against a Power 4 team.
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah, and I was just going to say, even just the eye test, you go, this is the best game he's played against like a real team.
Yeah.
By far.
Because he's been killing like the group of 5 teams that he plays, but then Power 4 is not as good. Like, this is the first time we're like, oh no, he killed this Power 4 team.
It was efficient, it was accurate, it was on time, and I think, and a big thing too, A&M's protection was spectacular.
Yep.
That he had time to throw and he was comfortable. I think the one thing we saw in that Notre Dame game and we've seen in past games against bigger teams is he hasn't been comfortable in the pocket. He was not comfortable at all in the pocket against Notre Dame. This game he was comfortable in the pocket. He felt protected and he felt like he could make all the throws. That was as confident as we've seen him in a big game for sure. It was the best we've seen him.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, big game for Connor Weigman and big game for Texas A&M, getting a massive win over Missouri